Alright, well now I'm going to explain some basic printing concepts that you need to know. These are called crop marks, bleed and live area. So let's start with the crop marks. Now see those little lines in the corners? I've circled them in red. These are called crop marks. They tell the printer where the edge of the paper will be. So this red area that you're looking at now is what will appear on the final page. Notice how the crop marks are all positioned so that they won't actually appear on the final artwork. Now when your pages are printed, they will actually be printed on a larger piece of paper. That's so the colour can come all the way to the edge of the page, which brings me to the next point, bleed. Because printers can't print all the way to the edge of a piece of paper, we have bleed. I've highlighted that area in blue. If you want your artwork to come all the way to the edge of the page, then it should come all the way to the outside edge of this blue area. Usually the bleed is only a few millimeters thick. This part of the page will get trimmed off the final comic, and you never know exactly where the edge of the comic is actually going to be. So it's best to have a few millimeters around every edge of the page. Say 5mm bleed around all sides. The only exception to this is on the inside of two pages that meet at the spine, but we'll talk about that a bit later. Now, a word of warning. If you try to do artwork to the edge of the paper without filling the bleed area, you could end up with this ugly looking sliver of white around some of the edges of your paper, and that really won't look professional. So the bleed area is actually quite important for making your comic look professional, especially if you have colour and artwork coming to the edge of the page. And finally, there is the live area. I've shown that here in purple. This is where all of the really important content goes. As I said, you never know exactly where the edge of the paper will end up. So just to be safe, all text and important pictures should be inside the live area. This includes the logo on the front cover of your comic. So let's take a look at a colour example, because this is more like what you would actually print out. Alright, now let's lay the printer's marks over the top of that. This red area is the part that will appear in the final comic. So the final comic would look like this. So you can see there were those parts around the edge that got trimmed off. Those parts are the bleed. So if we just go back and look at the bleed area, it's outside the red overlay. Notice how the colours and the line work fill the bleed area. That's all going to get trimmed off. And finally we have the live area. Notice how the main characters, the word balloon and the logo all fit within the live area. That box is useful to have on a template, but make sure it isn't on the final artwork. Unlike the crop marks, this area does not get trimmed off the final artwork, and you don't want that ugly looking box ruining your art. Now you can buy special paper with comic book page templates already printed on them. Typically the template is printed in blue so that in theory it doesn't show up when you scan your art. Unfortunately, this kind of paper can be a bit pricey, so I often just draw up my own templates in Photoshop and work from that.